When firefighter Ryan Carter responded to a routine emergency, he never expected to meet someone who would change his life forever. At 30, Ryan was dedicated to saving lives, not thinking about his own. But everything changed when he locked eyes with Noah, a 23-year-old with a smile that could light up even the darkest days. What began as a fleeting connection during a harrowing rescue turned into a love story full of passion, challenges and dreams. But life has a way of testing even the strongest bonds, and their love story was destined to end in heartbreak. What happened during their final moments together, and how did Noah find the strength to carry on? This is a story of love, loss, and a legacy that lives on forever. Ryan Carter had always been the kind of man who thrived in chaos. At 30, he was one of the most respected firefighters at Station 14, known for his bravery, dedication, and calm demeanor in the face of danger. His colleagues often joked that he had ice running through his veins because nothing seemed to shake him. But underneath the helmet and uniform, Ryan was just a man searching for meaning beyond the flames. The call came in on a warm summer afternoon. A fire had broken out in a small apartment building on the edge of town. Ryan and his team suited up, the familiar routine settling over them like muscle memory. As the fire truck roared through the streets, Ryan's mind was already calculating the risks, the strategies, the lives that needed saving. When they arrived at the scene, the building was already engulfed in thick smoke, flames licking at the windows. Residents were pouring out into the street, coughing and clutching their loved ones. Amidst the chaos, Ryan's sharp eyes caught sight of someone standing frozen on the third-floor balcony, a young man, his face pale and his movements hesitant. Third floor, north side, Ryan barked into his radio, already moving toward the ladder. He didn't wait for a response. This was what he did. He saved people. Reaching the balcony, Ryan extended his hand toward the young man, who was coughing and struggling to breathe. "Come on," Ryan urged, his voice steady but firm. "I've got you." The young man hesitated for a split second, his wide blue eyes meeting Ryan's. There was something in that gaze, fear, yes, but also trust. He nodded and took Ryan's hand, allowing himself to be pulled to safety. Once on the ground, the man collapsed onto the grass, coughing violently as the paramedics rushed to check him over. Ryan knelt beside him, his gloved hand resting gently on the man's shoulder. "You're okay now," Ryan said, his voice softer. "What's your name?" "Noah," the young man rasped, his voice weak but steady. "Noah Evans." Ryan nodded, removing his helmet and offering a reassuring smile. "Noah, you did great up there. You're safe now." Noah looked up at him, his eyes filled with gratitude, and something else. "Thank you," he said, his voice trembling. "I don't know how to thank you enough." Ryan shook his head. "You don't have to, it's my job." But as he stood to leave, Ryan felt a strange pull, an unexplainable connection to this man he had just met. He had rescued countless people in his career, but something about Noah was different. He pushed the thought aside, chalking it up to adrenaline. There was no room for personal feelings in his line of work. The fire was extinguished, and the scene was cleared. Ryan returned to the station, but Noah's face lingered in his mind. He tried to focus on his reports, his training, anything to distract himself, but the memory of those blue eyes wouldn't leave him. 2 days later, as Ryan was finishing his shift, a familiar figure appeared at the station door. It was Noah, holding a small bouquet of flowers and looking slightly nervous. "Hi," he said, his voice stronger than it had been during their last encounter. I wanted to say thank you, again." Ryan was taken aback but smiled warmly. "You didn't have to do that," he said, stepping forward. "But I appreciate it." Noah hesitated, then blurted out, "Can I take you to dinner, as a thank you?" Ryan blinked, surprised by the boldness of the request. He knew the risks, the complications of mixing his personal life with his work. But looking at Noah, with his hopeful smile and genuine sincerity, Ryan found himself unable to say no. "Sure," Ryan said, his smile widening. "I'd like that." And Noah's face lit up with relief. Ryan felt a strange sense of excitement, something he hadn't felt in years. He didn't know where this would lead, but for the first time in a long time, he was willing to find out. The next evening, Ryan found himself standing outside a small, cozy bistro in town, feeling more nervous than he had expected. He had been on countless high-stakes rescues, faced raging fires, and made life-or-death decisions without breaking a sweat, but somehow, the idea of sitting down for dinner with Noah had him on edge. It wasn't just the idea of a date, it was the way Noah had looked at him, with a gratitude that seemed to run deeper than words. As Ryan pushed the door open, he spotted Noah immediately. He was sitting at a corner table, his hands nervously fiddling with the edge of a napkin. When he saw Ryan, his face lit up, and he stood quickly, almost knocking over his water glass in the process. "Hey," Noah said, his voice warm but a little shaky. "I wasn't sure if you'd come." Ryan smiled, his nerves easing a little. "Of course I came. I couldn't say no to such a heartfelt invitation." He winked and Noah's cheeks turned a faint shade of pink. They sat down, and as the server brought over menus, an easy conversation began to flow between them. Noah talked about his work as a graphic designer, his love for painting, and his dreams of traveling the world. Ryan listened intently, surprised by how effortlessly Noah's enthusiasm for life drew him in. It had been a long time since Ryan had felt this kind of connection with someone, and it was both exhilarating and terrifying. "What about you?" Noah asked, leaning forward slightly. "Being a firefighter must be intense. Do you ever get scared?" Ryan paused, considering the question. "Scared? Not in the way you might think. It's more, a constant awareness. You know the risks, but you can't let them control you. You focus on the job, on the people who need you." Noah nodded, his eyes softening. "It must take a lot of courage." Ryan shrugged. "I don't think of it that way. I just do what needs to be done." There was a moment of silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. They held each other's gaze, the unspoken connection between them growing stronger. Ryan found himself wondering how someone like Noah, so vibrant, so full of life, had ended up in a situation where he needed to be rescued. But he didn't ask. Not yet. As the evening went on, their conversation deepened. Noah shared how the fire had started, an electrical fault in his apartment building, and how it had shaken him more than he wanted to admit. "I felt so helpless," Noah said quietly. "And then you were there, pulling me out of the chaos. I don't know how to explain it, but I've never felt safer than I did in that moment." Ryan's chest tightened at Noah's words. He wasn't used to hearing things like that. He was trained to save lives, to be a hero, but he rarely thought about the emotional impact his actions had on the people he rescued. Hearing Noah say those words, seeing the gratitude in his eyes, it made something inside Ryan shift. "You're stronger than you think," Ryan said, his voice steady. "You made it out of there because you didn't give up. You deserve just as much credit." Noah smiled, a genuine, heartfelt expression that made Ryan's pulse quicken. "I guess I owe you more than dinner then." Ryan chuckled, the sound surprising even himself. "I think we're even," he said, though the look in his eyes suggested otherwise. As the evening came to an end, neither of them seemed eager to leave. They lingered outside the bistro, the cool night air wrapping around them as they stood close, their conversation drifting into comfortable silence. "I had a great time tonight," Noah said finally, his voice soft. "Me too," Ryan replied, his gaze fixed on Noah's. He hesitated for a moment before adding, "We should do this again." Noah's face lit up, and he nodded quickly. "I'd like that." They exchanged goodbyes, and as Ryan watched Noah walk away, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years settled in his chest. It was hope, fragile but undeniable. For the first time in a long time, Ryan felt like he was stepping into something real, something that had the potential to change his life. And he wasn't afraid to see where it would lead. Over the next few weeks, Ryan and Noah's connection deepened. Their dinners turned into long walks through the park, coffee dates at small local shops, and late-night phone calls that often stretched into the early hours of the morning. Each encounter brought them closer, revealing pieces of themselves they had kept hidden from the world. For Ryan, Noah was a breath of fresh air, a reminder of the joy he had long since buried under the weight of his demanding career. Noah's infectious laughter, his passion for life, and his artistic way of seeing the world challenged Ryan to look beyond the routine of his days. He began to share more about his own struggles, the pressure of being the one everyone relied on, the fear of failing those he cared about. Noah, in turn, found a sense of safety and stability in Ryan that he had never known before. Ryan's quiet strength and unwavering support made him feel seen, valued, and cherished. For the first time in years, Noah felt like he could let down his guard and be himself without fear of judgment. One evening, as they sat together on Ryan's small couch, their conversation turned serious. Noah hesitated before speaking, his fingers tracing invisible patterns on the fabric of the cushion. "You know, I've never really let anyone in like this before," he admitted, his voice soft. "It scares me. But it also feels right." Ryan reached out, taking Noah's hand in his own. "Me neither," he said honestly. "But sometimes the things that scare us the most are the ones worth fighting for." Their eyes met, and in that moment, the unspoken feelings between them became undeniable. It wasn't just attraction or companionship, it was something deeper, something that had the potential to change both of their lives forever. Neither of them knew what the future held, but they were ready to face it together. Ryan and Noah quickly settled into a rhythm, their lives intertwining in ways that felt natural and effortless. Ryan would finish his long shifts at the firehouse, exhausted but smiling at the thought of Noah waiting for him. Noah, in turn, found himself looking forward to their evenings together, whether it was sharing dinner, watching old movies, or simply sitting on the couch talking about their days. One weekend, Noah surprised Ryan by bringing him to an art gallery where his latest work was on display. As they walked through the space, Ryan marveled at Noah's talent. His paintings were vivid, full of life and emotion, each one telling a story that felt uniquely personal. "This one's my favorite," Noah said, stopping in front of a canvas filled with vibrant reds and oranges that seemed to dance across the surface. "It reminds me of fire, how destructive it can be but also how it can bring warmth and light." Ryan's chest tightened at the sentiment. "It's beautiful," he said, his voice quiet. "Just like the person who painted it." Noah blushed, nudging Ryan playfully. "You're such a softie when you're not in uniform." Ryan chuckled, pulling Noah into a brief but heartfelt hug. "Only for you." Their days were filled with moments like these, small, simple acts of love that made the weight of the world feel a little lighter. For Ryan, Noah was a reminder of why he fought so hard to protect others. For Noah, Ryan was a source of strength and stability in a world that often felt chaotic. But even as their bond grew stronger, an unspoken fear lingered in the background. Ryan's job was dangerous, and every time he left for a call, Noah couldn't help but worry about the risks he faced. Still, they chose to focus on the present, cherishing every moment they had together. Their love was a beacon, shining brightly amidst the uncertainties of life, and they both vowed to hold on to it for as long as they could. It was a crisp autumn morning when Ryan left for his shift, the kind of day that promised cooler weather and the golden hues of fall. Noah stood at the door of their small apartment, watching as Ryan adjusted his jacket and kissed him softly before leaving. These goodbyes had become routine, but they were never taken for granted. Noah always worried when Ryan walked out the door, knowing the dangers that came with his job. "Stay safe," Noah said, his voice laced with both affection and concern. "I always do," Ryan replied with a reassuring smile, though they both knew it was a promise he couldn't fully guarantee. Ryan arrived at the firehouse to find his team preparing for the day. There were routine checks on the equipment, a few jokes shared over coffee, and the usual camaraderie that came with working in such a high-pressure environment. Ryan loved his job, but he knew the risks better than anyone. Each shift carried the possibility of danger, a reality he had come to accept over the years. The day passed uneventfully until the call came in during the late afternoon. A warehouse on the outskirts of the city was ablaze, and multiple units were being dispatched. Ryan's team suited up quickly, the adrenaline kicking in as they boarded the truck and sped toward the scene. When they arrived, the sight was overwhelming. Flames consumed the building, thick smoke billowing into the sky. The team sprang into action, coordinating efforts to contain the fire and search for anyone who might still be inside. Ryan led the charge, his years of experience guiding his every move. They cleared most of the building, finding no one inside, but as they prepared to pull back, a civilian ran up to them, shouting that a worker might still be trapped in the basement. Without hesitation, Ryan volunteered to go back in. His captain hesitated for a moment but knew better than to argue. Ryan was one of the best, and if anyone could handle it, it was him. The heat was intense as Ryan made his way deeper into the building. The air was thick with smoke, and the sound of collapsing beams echoed around him. He reached the basement and found the worker, a man in his late 40s, huddled in a corner, coughing and terrified. "It's okay, I'm here to get you out," Ryan said, his voice calm and steady despite the chaos. He helped the man to his feet, guiding him back toward the exit. But as they reached the stairs, a loud crack split the air, and part of the ceiling collapsed, blocking their path. Ryan's heart raced as he scanned the room for another way out. He radioed his team, letting them know the situation. They assured him they were working on clearing the debris, but time was running out. The fire was spreading rapidly, and Ryan could feel the temperature rising. Back at the apartment, Noah was preparing dinner, his phone sitting nearby. He had grown used to the uncertainty of Ryan's job, but today felt different. There was a heaviness in his chest that he couldn't shake, a nagging sense of dread. He tried to focus on chopping vegetables, telling himself that Ryan was careful, that he always came home. As the minutes turned into hours, Noah's anxiety grew. He checked his phone repeatedly, but there were no messages. Finally, unable to sit still any longer, he turned on the news. His stomach dropped when he saw the live footage of the warehouse fire, the flames consuming the building with alarming intensity. "Please, no," Noah whispered, his hands trembling as he fumbled to dial Ryan's number. It went straight to voicemail. Meanwhile, inside the warehouse, Ryan's team had managed to clear a path to the basement. He guided the worker toward safety, his own lungs burning from the smoke. Just as they reached the exit, another collapse sent debris raining down, separating Ryan from the others. "Ryan!" his captain shouted, but there was no response. Ryan pushed against the debris, desperate to free himself, but the weight was too much. His breathing grew labored, and he knew his time was running out. In those final moments, his thoughts turned to Noah, his laughter, his kindness, the way he had brought light into Ryan's life. "I'm sorry," Ryan whispered, his voice barely audible as the flames closed in around him. Outside, the worker stumbled into the arms of the rescue team, gasping for air. "He's still in there," the man said, pointing toward the building. But before anyone could act, a massive explosion shook the ground, sending a plume of smoke and fire into the sky. Noah, watching the news from home, collapsed to his knees as the screen showed the devastating scene. Tears streamed down his face as the reality of what had happened sank in. The man he loved, the man who had saved so many lives, was gone. The world felt unbearably empty without Ryan, but Noah knew he couldn't let his memory fade. Ryan had taught him the meaning of courage, of selflessness, of love. And Noah vowed to honor him in the only way he knew how. The days following Ryan's tragic death were a whirlwind of grief for Noah. It felt as if the world had shifted, leaving him unmoored, struggling to find his place in a reality without the man he loved. The apartment they had shared became both a sanctuary and a prison, every corner filled with memories of Ryan, his laughter, his scent, his steady presence that had once made Noah feel safe. The firehouse organized a memorial service in Ryan's honor, attended by his colleagues, friends and family. The room was heavy with sorrow, but it was also filled with stories of Ryan's heroism. His captain spoke first, recounting how Ryan had saved lives with a courage that was both inspiring and humbling. His team shared anecdotes about his relentless work ethic and the way he could make them laugh, even in the most harrowing of circumstances. Noah sat in the front row, clutching the folded flag the firehouse had presented to him. His tears fell freely as he listened, but beneath the grief, a new emotion began to take root: pride. Ryan hadn't just been a firefighter. He had been a force of nature, someone who made the world better simply by being in it. When it was Noah's turn to speak, he walked to the podium with trembling hands, his voice shaky but determined. "Ryan wasn't just my partner," he began, his eyes scanning the room. "He was my anchor, my inspiration. He taught me what it means to live with purpose, to put others before yourself. And though he's gone, I know his legacy will live on, in the lives he saved and in the hearts of everyone here." The audience nodded, their collective grief palpable. Noah returned to his seat, feeling a sense of finality but also a deep conviction. Ryan's life had been about more than just saving others. It was about giving hope, about showing people that even in the darkest moments, there was a way forward. In the days that followed, Noah found himself replaying their last conversations, searching for guidance in Ryan's words. He remembered the way Ryan had always spoken about firefighting, not as a job, but as a calling. "It's about being there for people when they need it most," Ryan had once said. "Sometimes, it's not just about saving lives, it's about giving people a reason to believe in something bigger than themselves." Sitting alone in their apartment, surrounded by reminders of Ryan, Noah made a decision. He would honor Ryan's memory by stepping into the role that had defined him. He would become a firefighter, not just to keep Ryan's legacy alive, but to find a sense of purpose for himself. The decision wasn't easy. Noah was terrified of failing, of stepping into a world that had taken Ryan away from him. But every time he felt doubt creeping in, he thought of Ryan's unwavering determination, his belief in doing what was right, no matter the cost. It was enough to push Noah forward. The first step was enrolling in the fire academy. Noah threw himself into the training with a focus that surprised even him. The physical demands were brutal: long days of climbing ladders, carrying heavy equipment, and practicing rescue scenarios that left his muscles aching and his lungs burning. But Noah refused to give up. Every time he felt like he couldn't take another step, he thought of Ryan, of the sacrifices he had made, of the courage he had shown, and it gave him the strength to keep going. The instructors quickly took notice of Noah's dedication. Though he was smaller and less physically imposing than some of his peers, his determination set him apart. He was the first to arrive every morning, often staying late to practice until his hands were blistered and his body was exhausted. His classmates began to rally around him, inspired by his tenacity and his willingness to push through every obstacle. One night, after a particularly grueling day of training, Noah sat alone in his small dorm room, staring at a photo of Ryan he had taped to the wall. "I hope I'm making you proud," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "I don't know if I can ever be as brave as you, but I'm trying, for you." As the weeks turned into months, Noah began to transform. The timid, uncertain man who had once been rescued from a burning building was now a confident, capable firefighter in training. He learned to trust himself, to rely on the instincts and skills he had worked so hard to develop. And though the pain of losing Ryan never fully faded, It began to coexist with a sense of purpose, a belief that he was doing something meaningful, something that mattered. The day Noah graduated from the academy was bittersweet. He stood in his crisp new uniform, surrounded by applause, but his heart ached knowing Ryan wasn't there to see it. Yet, as he looked out at the faces of his fellow graduates, he felt a quiet sense of pride. He had made it. He had honored Ryan's memory in the best way he knew how. After the ceremony, Noah visited Ryan's grave, kneeling beside the headstone as the wind rustled the leaves around him. "I did it," he said softly, placing his firefighter's badge at the base of the grave. "I became what you always believed I could be. Thank you for showing me the way." As Noah stood to leave, a ray of sunlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the grave and casting a warm glow over the badge. Noah smiled through his tears, feeling Ryan's presence as if he were standing right beside him. Ryan was gone, but his spirit lived on in every step Noah took, every fire he fought, and every life he saved. Noah's first day at Station 14 was a mix of nerves and determination. Walking into the same firehouse where Ryan had worked felt surreal. The team welcomed him warmly, many of them recognizing him from Ryan's stories and the memorial. Their respect for Ryan extended to Noah, and they quickly made him feel like part of the family. His first call was small, a kitchen fire, but it carried immense weight. Climbing into the fire truck, hearing the sirens wail, Noah felt a surge of emotion. This was Ryan's world, and now it was his. As they arrived at the scene, Noah moved with precision and focus, his training kicking in. When the fire was extinguished and the family was safe, Noah felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't experienced since losing Ryan. For the first time in a long time, he felt whole. Months passed, and Noah found his stride as a firefighter. Each day brought new challenges, but also new opportunities to grow. His teammates became his second family, sharing stories about Ryan that made Noah feel closer to him. Every fire he fought, every life he helped save, was a tribute to the man who had inspired him to take this path. One evening, after a long shift, Noah sat alone at the station, flipping through an old photo album Ryan's captain had given him. It was filled with pictures of Ryan in action, smiling, laughing, living his best life. Noah's chest tightened with a mixture of pride and longing. "I hope I'm making you proud," he whispered to the photo, his fingers brushing against Ryan's smiling face. Years later, Noah stood at a community event honoring fallen firefighters. He was now a respected firefighter himself, known for his courage and dedication. As he spoke to the crowd about Ryan's sacrifice, his voice was steady, filled with love and gratitude. "Ryan taught me that being a firefighter isn't just about bravery, it's about heart. It's about showing up for people when they need you most, even when it's hard. He gave me the courage to live a life of purpose, and I'll carry his legacy with me every day." The audience erupted into applause, but Noah's eyes were fixed on the sky, where the setting sun painted the horizon with shades of gold and orange. In his heart, he knew Ryan was with him, guiding him, inspiring him to keep going. Their love had transcended loss, becoming a legacy of courage, hope, and unwavering devotion. And for Noah, that was more than enough. Hey there. We hope you were moved by this heartfelt story. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Drop your honest opinion in the comments below. What did you think about Noah and Ryan's journey? Give this story a rating from 1 to 10 and let us know what stood out to you the most. Also, tell us if you'd like to see a continuation of this emotional tale. Your feedback means everything to us. Thank you for being part of our community. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this one.